All right, I believe we are live once more. We're never not live. All right, let me get my Amazon thing going here. And yeah, today I'm just kind of starting a project. I'm like catching up. I've had so much stuff that has been on the back burner, and I am trying to get through all of it. And this is kind of a neat one. This is like a pro level webcam. And I've got a bunch of production related items. We did a big unboxing a little while ago. And we had a bunch of these things as part of that, which I haven't gotten to yet. So this will be one of the first ones I look at. This one I find very intriguing. This is a webcam, but it works over NDI, which means that you don't actually plug it into the computer, you just put it on your network, and then you can connect it to multiple devices. And as a result, it is rather large. So it's not, it's not like your tiny little Logitech camera, but it's 4K, but I think it outputs at 1080p, and then you can zoom in on different parts of your image. So that's what this is about. So we're going to hook this thing up and see how it works. And there's a lot to it because it's like a pro level camera. So I think if you're in like broadcast journalism or something, like this is what you would use. And this has a remote control that goes with it. And I have to start labeling these things. I have another one of their cameras. Actually, I have two other cameras from them. And they all come with the same remote control. So I got to get that straightened out. And there should be another battery in here, which I think just disappeared. And the remote's important because you can set, I found a battery down here. The remote's important because you can set different presets, so you can have it kind of zoom around and look at stuff. So I thought that was kind of neat. So we will see. Hopefully there's enough juice in these batteries here. Where'd the other battery go? See if I can find what happened to it. I'll track it down. We got to get it hooked up first. And I don't have a ton of time. I probably got about an hour today. So we will see how this thing does its job. And it's nice. Looks nice. Nice and well built. Now there's two versions of this. So here, I'll give you the overhead. So this one, by the way, they sent this to the channel free of charge, but they're not paying for the review, nor are they reviewing or approving this before it gets uploaded. The build quality feels really nice on it. It's like metal. It is metal. It's not like metal. So it's like metal on the front here, like this whole front top and bottom piece, and then it's plastic on the back. And then you plug it into the network here, and that gets you the NDI out. There's a USB port, but it's not used, and then you can plug in the power here. But this is this works over power over Ethernet, so you could plug it into. I have a PoE switch. I just don't have a cable coming out of it at the moment. You could plug it directly into your network and have the network power it. So all of the stuff they make is PoE compatible. Excuse me. So that is that part. And let's see what else we get. We got some folks coming in to the chat. So we'll say hello to some friends here as we get going. Like I said, got about an hour today. So we will go from there. Mark Dell says it's been a while. Yeah, I think it was like 3 or 4 days ago was my last one. It all depends on like what my workload is. So we'll see what goes on there. Cedar Lake is here. A beautiful lake in Chester, Connecticut. We have NC Strev is here. Mark wants to know, can you hook it up to an Xbox 360? So this, yeah, it looks like the Kinect, doesn't it? So this one will not work with the Xbox because it only works over NDI. But they have a USB version, which I think they also sent me. So I will review both when we have the full review, which I might get to tomorrow, depending on how complex this thing turns out to be. So we'll see what that one looks like. Yeah, Mark Dell, I did one like it was a CES, like a digital CES one the other day. Patrick Chang is here. Chris John is here from Holland. Hello. Billy Castles is here from Houston. So always amazing how many people find their way to these live streams when I do them. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to get this thing on the network. So we're going to plug in the network cable. And again, I don't have PoE going to the to the port here, so I could very well do that. But right now it's not hooked up to that switch. So PoE goes in here if I had it, and then it would power on. But because we don't have PoE, I'm going to plug in power and get it connected. Now it is rather large, so here I'll pull my Mac over here, or my Windows Surface Go laptop here. So it's probably a little much. Here, let me get a better view of it here. It's probably a little much on a little laptop like this because it is rather large and in charge. But I mean, it does fit. And it's got a pretty nice clamp here, so you can get it. So this part, see that part moves. So you can. I think it'll work on just about any monitor that you attach it to. And then on the bottom, so these two, oh, that's cool. So these two parts move around a little bit. So you have movement here and movement here. And I'm guessing, well, I guess you can get it to adjust itself any which way. So I could cover up the other webcam on here. So yeah, I would say it's probably a bit large for a laptop. But there you go. So now, let me see if it's showing up on my list of network cameras here. So I'm looking on vMix, which is what I use for my video switching. And at the moment, it has not appeared. So I think I might have to log into the camera and do some configuration. So let's go into the instruction book here and see, let's read. Okay, your HuddleCam is set to, oh, so there's some settings that we have to go through here. So here's the initial instructions. Your HuddleCam HD is set to 192.168.100.88 by default, and we'll have to navigate to that through a web browser to access your camera. All right, so, or you can change your camera's address using our IP address setting tool, HuddlecamHD/setup. So let's grab that real quick and see if we can get going with that first. So I'm going to go and do that. Mark Dell wants to know, why is it so big? And I think it's all the technology in there. Let me send this over here. There is a lot of tech. There's no buttons in it, but it's a 4K sensor. It's got a large lens. So I'm guessing the image quality is going to be light years beyond what you get out of one of your normal cameras. Austin Hamilton is here from Phoenix. Hello. Utter Concrete got one like this from Logitech. Yeah, Logitech's got one similar to this. This one's neat though. So I use NDI a lot here on the channel because I use vMix to switch my video. And then when one of these NDI devices is on the network, it just comes right over. It's amazing how it works. So it's been really useful for a lot, just the NDI technology in general has been awesome. So let me pull up our computer screen here, and we are going to go in 1 second here to the setup page. And this is one of my office hours kind of things where we just don't have a set mission here. We just kind of work on getting things set up. All right, so let me go to HuddlecamHD.com/setup. And this is by a company called PTZ Optics, and they make a lot of, I don't want to say low-end because they're not low-end devices, but they are less expensive than other PTZ cameras like this. And we need the IP, I guess I could just redo the IP address on this laptop, but let's try to do it this way. The IP address setting tool. So that's the software, framing, and tracking control. And don't see, let's try Pro IP Upgrade Tool 2.8. Let's see if that does what we need it to do. All right, so let me go grab this file real quick, and we will take a look at this. By the way, I am very, very, very happy with this Surface Go laptop. It's like the perfect size for my desk. And the other day I put one of these docking stations, I kind of mounted it to my desk here, so it just plugs into that. It doesn't have Thunderbolt, but the dock I'm using is one of these Kensington docks, and it supports both Thunderbolt and USB-C. And it works great with both. All right, so we're going to run this utility here called Upgrade. And this is very similar to their other cameras. I'm guessing they have a very similar firmware on here. And if I go and search, it should find the camera on the network. Yep, there it is. So we're going to go in here, and I want to go to config. And I'm just going to have it do DHCP. Let's see. Well, if I'm setting DHCP, it shouldn't require any IP address. Let's just hit reset. Okay, good. So now it's on DHCP. So now the camera is going to reboot, and then we'll get it back. And it'll just take a second for it to reboot and find its way. So you see the light went off, so it's just rebooting. And I'm guessing there's probably going to be a firmware update for this. So let's take a look at that while we're waiting here. So we'll go framing and tracking control software. I'm going to grab that software too. Product documentation. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe there's a... Maybe up to date. We'll find out. All right, the blue light is back on, as you can see there. And we'll go back and do a search. And now we've got a IP address there. And we're good to go. So let's go into that web address, 2.200. And I'm guessing it's like admin. Okay. All right, so I don't have Flash, so that's why we don't see what's on screen here. Yeah, this is exactly like their other camera. And let's see here. Give me 1 second. Just got to send a message to somebody real quick. All right, send that off real quick. Sorry about that, folks. All right, so I'm just looking to see where the NDI settings are. It supports RTSP, it looks like, also. Usually they have like an NDI setting somewhere in the mix here. So we have the dynamic IP address. Let's go to system. Oh, work mode. Okay, we want to switch this to... Well, let me see if it's picking up on our network now and see what we get. So let me go add, here, I'll show you my vMix screen here and give you a view of that. So we'll hit display 1 here. Oops. All right, give me 1 second here, folks. Just got to respond to this message real quick. All right. Okay, so let's move over to my vMix screen here. And it's like a little, whoa. So what I'm going to do here, let's see if it shows up as a camera. Yep, here it is. Already there. Boom. And, aha. Now you'll note here, it's got a pretty wide angle on it, doesn't it? So that's what it looks like. But I think... I'm just looking at my settings here. I think it only is outputting at 1080p, but it's got a 4K sensor. So if I take my remote out here, I can zoom in, I think. Is that zooming? No. I think maybe the battery's not fully functional here. Let's get this other battery in here. And, okay, so now if I zoom in with the remote, is that working? Not working. Sometimes I get bum remotes from them. This might be one of them because the little light's not coming on either. Hopefully I didn't get the batteries in backwards here. I think maybe I did. Yeah, I got the battery in backwards. What am I doing? That's embarrassing. I put the battery in the wrong way. Hopefully I didn't zap it. Okay, let's get the batteries in. Oops, let's get the batteries in the correct way. And that might do better. There we go. Okay, so now, and I haven't done any adjustments to this yet, so we'll get there in a minute. Yep, there we go. So now it's zooming in. Now this isn't actually physically zooming. This is a virtual zoom. And I got a super chat to thank Joshua Cardona. Thank you very much for your super chat. Let me put you up on screen here. So let's put you up there. Yeah, so this thing is billed as a webcam, I think primarily because of its look, right? But this is actually like a pro level NDI camera. And what we're doing here is we are zooming. So there's actually no moving parts to this. This is all a sensor zoom, a cropping, if you will. So it outputs at 1080p. Looks pretty good, I think, don't you think? It outputs at 1080p, but it is running with a 4K sensor. So you can get in on detail here. Let's see if it focuses. So it's going to keep the detail pretty sharp, I think. Let's take a look at this paper here. And I have not adjusted any of the settings yet, so, but it's pretty good. There doesn't seem to be a lot of, I'm doing this on purpose. It doesn't seem to be a lot of rolling shutter on this either. It's got a nice fast sensor. But I think it looks nice. I mean, it's big for a webcam, but because it's big, you get a better sensor. Now this is zoomed in all the way, and then I can zoom back out. It almost looks like it's a mechanical thing, even like at the end of it, but this is all digital. Like I'm looking at it right now, there's nothing moving in there. I'm not hearing any motors or anything. And then what you can do with this, so let me zoom all the way out. And so now when I'm zoomed out, you can't do any movement. But watch this, I can move in here, and then I can move the camera this way. So I can kind of pan over. This is all from what it's picking up in that wide angle image. And you can see it's a little soft on the Apple there. Now I think what I can do with this is if I hold down this button here, and then let me move this way, because you can actually set a memory location. Yes, I got to set the memory location on this. So let me go move it this way. I'm just playing with the buttons here. And actually, you know what I'll do is I'll give you a 2-up, so you can see both the output and the remote control at the same time. So let me just get my virtual set going here. Like I said, I just got this. Well, I got it a while ago, but I just opened it. All right, here's a 2-up with device. I think this one will work. Let's see. So we'll set camera 1, layer 1. Yeah, and then we'll set this to the output of the camera, which is that. And then we'll do layer 2, which will be camera 2. Yeah, that'll work. And then I'll give you my little looping background there. All right, so let's pull that up. And I haven't adjusted the white balance or anything on it, so that's why it looks a little bit off. But you can see as I move the button here, it's zooming, or doing a crop and zoom essentially. So now I want to figure out how to, I've never actually used their remote to program a preset, but I wanted to show you how that works. So let me go in and preset 1. Let's see if that, okay, there we go. So now watch this, I'm going to move it this way. And if I hit 1 on the remote, boom, right? Okay, so we got me. And now let's move this over here. And then we'll kind of get it on the Apple 2GS there. We'll say preset 2, okay? So now, let me switch over to the camera here. All right, so now we've got it there. So if I hit 1, it's back to me, 2, onto that. So in some ways, this is kind of like, remember that camera we looked at from, what was it called? Gosh, it escapes me. But it's one of these, it's a crop and zoom camera. But it works pretty good. Looks good, actually. Now, there is an on-screen setup. It has a microphone, too. We could put that on. Let me adjust the audio on this real quick. And you can tell me what the sound sounds like. So let's see. Let's go, and I'll get to your questions in a minute, too, everybody. I'm just going to turn the volume down a bit here. Okay. Test, 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 test. Okay, looks like I'm about the same audio level. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kill my mic here, And let's turn the camera audio on. Oop. Hang on. Feedback. 1 second. I'm just going to turn the headphone off. Okay, there we go. So now you can turn it on. How does that sound? It sounds pretty, I mean, it sounded good from what I heard a second ago. And I can turn it up a bit. Let me turn it up a little bit. All right, so now, oops, that's peaking. So I've got it at like halfway. So I think that sounds pretty good. It looks pretty good. And again, I haven't done anything with this at all. And now and by the way, there's a whole menu here so we can adjust exposure, color. Right now it's on full auto. And there's a lot that you can go in with this. So right now it's on auto white balance mode. I could change that. So we could go and do it manually. One push. I've got some like white balance stuff that I have to mess around with here, but so I'd have to like match it up with my cameras. I think it looks pretty good. And so you got all these different menu settings. And this is very similar, like it's got like the same firmware as some of their other cameras. So JFC says, when I move fast, it looks weird. So I think what that is if I go into, let's see, I got to set the frame rate because right now it's running, I think it's 60 and my system is capturing essentially at 30. So let's dive into where the camera settings are. Zoom limit, EPTZ is on, zoom, audio in, mic. We have some options for audio in. What do we got? I'm just looking through here to see where the camera settings are. Oops. So Danielle says, really hearing natural room reverb, no hum or noise. Good. Some delay is being reported. So yeah, if I turn on my audio, it'll make noise and echo back. So I'll check that out. But this is going into my NDI system through vMix. But what's cool about NDI, let me see if I have it on my laptop here. Did I download the NDI tools? Let's see. I have not yet. So I haven't put the NDI tools on this computer, but I could simultaneously run this through my video system and also to the laptop. Mark Dell wants to know if I can add scan lines. Yeah, so I think, compared to my other mic, it's not the same, right? So let's turn the audio off. Turn my other mic back on. And let me know, is there less of a delay now? Because it's all running through my other system. So this mic is going in directly to my video system, and then we're syncing with the NDI video. So there might be a little bit of a delay based on how the audio is arriving to the system. And yes, Patrick, that's right. The Mevo is what I was thinking about. So this could work in a conference room environment. It's just funny. I was just talking to some folks who were trying to figure out, so what's going to happen. Here's my prediction. As we're moving through with this vaccine stuff, you're going to see a move now to start getting people back in rooms together. But, like there's no switch that you're going to hit, right? So you're going to be in these like weird hybrid modes. So here's an example of a camera that you could set up in a conference room. Or let's say you have tonight I have my perfect example. I've got my Board of Education meeting. Now, typically when we meet as a Board of Ed, we sit around a table, but I could see a different setting where we're sitting in a table next to each other across this way. So you could set up one or two of these things. And so, for example, so right now I've got it, all right, let me move into position here. So you could have, all right, so we got that. And let me zoom all the way out. All right, so I got it zoomed all the way out, and now I'm going to create a third preset here. We're going to call this preset 3. So I've got like my wide shot, and then as the meeting is going on, you could have this static shot of everybody, or you could, boop, hit that, hey, what's up? Go to the next person, go back to your wide shot, and I'm switching in the camera, right? Isn't that cool? So, but it looks good. Like it's not soft. So the natural image is this. That's what it's defaulted at. That optically, that's the natural image. And then zoomed in, you get that. So I do need to adjust the white balance to kind of match my setting here, because my face is warmer out of this camera than this one. So I just have to adjust that a little bit. But yeah, and Robert's saying this mic sounds better. Yeah, this is like a super expensive Sennheiser mic this is what I use for all my videos. And I don't have, I'm not monitoring audio, so I can't tell which one sounds louder than the other one, unfortunately. I'm just looking at the levels on my vMix system. So yeah, this is pretty good. So now there's apparently some software. Yeah, that's cool. I just like how fast that is. Boom. But it impresses me, because remember when we looked at the Mevo does actually very similar things to this one, because the Mevo also supports NDI, and it does these digital zooms. But the Mevo is 1080p, so when you pull in this close, you're going to see some digital stuff. This is 4K, but outputs at 1080p. So as you can see here, it looks pretty good. I mean, it's got a little bit of softness, but you can see my graying here. I mean, it's got some good detail there, right? So yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Tom Jordan says so on the Amazon chat. And there's a USB version of this that works the same as this one does, except it pumps out via USB versus NDI. So that's how that works. Pretty cool. All right. Tech Nerd's wondering maybe it uses some AI sharpening. It could. I bet you there's probably some kind of image sampling going on. I'm sure that's the case. Robert Van Edda wants to know, what bitrate options does it have? So the bitrate on this is NDI HX, and that's a good question, because I am wondering if there is a setting, because in NDI you've got, NDI HX has 3 levels. It's got low, medium, and high. So medium is like, I'm just looking through here to see if I can find it. It also apparently supports RTMP. So I'm just not seeing any NDI settings. Let me go back to the software and see if it's in here somewhere. Because I remember the other camera, I did have to set it at a higher bit rate. Oh, here's some of the video settings. Let me go jump back to the computer. So some things you can set with the remote control with the on-screen, and then there's some stuff that sets on the computer. So here would be 60 hertz or 50, so it doesn't have a 30 option. NDI, here's what we want to do. So right now the NDI preset is off. And I don't know if this applies to RTSP or not. So it looks like, I'm guessing this is on the RTMP side, that you do have the option to go up to 4K. I'm going to turn this NDI preset to Ultra. And I'm going to apply that. And this likely will require a reboot. So let me do that. And then I can take a look at my computer's networking performance and get a feel for that. Because right now, see, this isn't accurate because, here, I'll pull up my computer screen. This isn't accurate because I am also bringing NDI in over the, for the laptop video that you see on screen. So that I have like a straight non-compressed NDI coming in. So I don't know which one is which. Let me see if I can break out. I think vMix is going to have its own. Yes, I don't know which one is using what. So, and then we've got, of course, the video going out. So let me reboot the camera, and I'll try to figure out what bit rate it's at. Because it definitely, as you saw here, it was on a default thing there. So I'm going to set it to ultra, which I think is going to be about 15 to 20 megabits per second. So NDI HX is a compressed video format. Yeah, here I didn't apply it, so let me apply it. And what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to reboot the camera. And to do that, we're going to pull the power out and plug it back in. So NDI HX is basically H.264 encoded, and then it pushes it out over the NDI network protocol. And when that video arrives, there is some decompression, so that adds just a little bit of latency. Now, the other box that I'm currently using to get the computer's video in does not have any lossy compression, so it runs at a much higher bit rate. So the computer's box that is plugged into runs at like 140 megabits per second right now. And then if you're doing 4K, it's like 200 or 300. So you can see how quickly you can saturate a gigabit connection with NDI video, especially if you're running the uncompressed boxes or the non-lossy compression. So what I did is I upgraded my vMix machine to a 10 gigabit network card to give it more bandwidth for local video. But what I do though for the main cameras, so this camera, this one, and this one, all three of my main cameras go in via HDMI direct. I have a card in my computer, my desktop computer, that brings that in. One of the videos I plan to do in the next couple of weeks is to show you my current setup, because I didn't get rid of the TriCaster. It's still sitting there. I got to sell it. But I switched to vMix exclusively because it's working much better, and all these NDI devices work with it. So NDI I don't use for everything. I use for anything that's not my three main cameras, basically. All right, so the camera is back up. And let's take a look at... So I've done that zoom in now, so let's see if it looks a little less compressed. And the problem for you all is that you're watching on a compressed stream. So I'm pushing video out at 6 megabits per second to YouTube, and Amazon is 720p at 2.5. So there's a lot of compression on the Amazon video. But I think it looks pretty good. I mean, if you're on a conference call with this, you're going to look great. I mean, it's a lot better than the built-in camera, for sure. So that's pretty neat. Jaudu Janaska on the Amazon chat was searching for webcams today. Yeah, this is like the creme de la creme webcam. And what's cool is that this is all network. So if you have, this is like $500, by the way. So it's not a cheap webcam. But it is a webcam in the sense that it looks like a webcam and it has like your typical webcam mount, but it really is a pro-level 4K camera that you stick on your top of your monitor. And this uses the NDI protocol. So if you have a PoE switch, which I have and I'll use for the main review, you don't even need a power cord. You just plug it into the network and it gets its power over the network. So it kind of works like some of the security cameras do. But I love the fact that you can just switch around to different things. So I could, start with me here. I could switch to, it's all in the camera. So if you were doing a meeting and you had a couple people at the table, you can, switch between people left and right. The image isn't good, you can just use your remote control here and adjust it. And it's kind of neat, like it's a little jittery there. What's kind of neat about this is that it's all digital, but it has a feel like it's a real motor. So it's got a little bit of lag to it. Isn't that cool? But this is all digital. There's no moving parts in this thing. So that's kind of neat. So there's another piece of software that we downloaded. So let's look at that real quick. I think the bitrate does look a little bit better. I can check my network here and see if we're transiting more data. Yeah, actually we are. So before we were doing 140 megabits per second. And here, I'll pull this up again so you can see it. So now we're doing about 10 megabits more. So I would say when you're on ultra settings, you're probably running at about 15 to 20 megabits per second out of this. Now, if you were on like a regular NDI, you'd be doing 120, 140. So that would be the difference there. And the sending speed is what I'm sending out to Amazon and YouTube right now. And I got plenty of bandwidth on this card. This is a 10 gigabit card on the computer here, the production computer. So we're in good shape there. All right, so that's that. So now there's another piece of software that we downloaded, which was the HuddleCam. I guess there's like some software that can manage the discussions, like the camera switching. So let's take a look at that real quick and see how that works. I'm just going to install that real quick. They are not a certified Windows developer, so you're going to have to hit that button there. And I believe I've already told you how much I love this little laptop, but every day I use it, I love it more. And it's not like a great performer. It's fast for what I use it for. This is the Microsoft, I bought this about 2 or 3 months ago. This is the Surface Laptop Go. It's so light. It's so light. It's 12 inches. I would have liked it to be a little bit thinner. They had to fit that full-size USB cable in there. But it's been great because it gives me a nice, small, compact Windows laptop for doing demos like this on the desk. And I don't have a very big desk here. So it's been pretty cool. All right, so this is the HuddleCam HD software. So let's pull that up real quick and see how this works. And again, I got to get out of here in about 20 minutes, but we'll see what we do here. Mark asked a question in the Amazon chat. Am I using the Surface Book more than the Mac Mini? So the answer to that is yes and no. So here's what's happened with all my computers. I bought that MacBook Air M1, and that is larger than my old 12-inch MacBook, but it's obviously a lot faster. So even though it's slightly larger and bigger than I would like, I've been using that as the Mac that I put on the desk here. And that's been working great. And so I haven't used the 12-inch MacBook that much at all. But I'm using this one now as kind of like my secondary device on the desk here. So I'm using it today, obviously, because their software runs on Windows, not Mac. So I'm using it more than I thought I would. And I'm using it more than the Surface, the little Surface Tablet Go thing that I had before. Because this is a lot faster than the 12-inch MacBook, because it's got a regular, it's a real, regular Intel U-series processor versus those fanless things that the other MacBook has. All right, so let's add device here. And I've got to add it manually, it looks like, huh? Can it find it? Let's see. Start search. So it's going to search the network. I know the IP address, so I could probably just type that in. But I want to see if it's able to find something on the network. So it didn't find it. That's okay, because I know the device IP. So let's go, we're going to call this add by IP. This is the IP that it was assigned. And I can have my router just add that. And it's not finding it. So what does all this do? So we may have to poke around with this a bit more, I think. Because it's on the network. We know it's there because we're using it. But it's not finding it. Well, it looks like you can have like multiple cameras loaded into this device management and kind of switch between them, so that's pretty cool. But we have to figure out why this is not cooperating. I will try to, let me just disconnect this camera just to see if that changes anything. So let's try that real quick and see if that makes any difference. Generally with NDI, that shouldn't matter because you can connect multiple things up with NDI simultaneously. So for example, I have to go grab the NDI tools from NewTek, but the NDI tools, this is probably a good discussion anyhow, because you can play with NDI now without any hardware. So if we go over to NewTek here, let me pull up their website. They have free tools. Version 4.5 is available right now. And there's a couple of different pieces of software that make up the tool set. So this is a new one, Screen Capture HX. So what does that do? We'll have to download this whole thing and see what it does. So basically, when you get the NDI tools, any Windows laptop or any Mac machine, or desktop, gives you a bunch of tools here. So the studio monitor lets you look at NDI sources over the network. The scan converter allows you to share your screen without having to plug your computer in over HDMI or DisplayPort. So you just load up the NDI scan converter, and your Windows screen shows up as a video input for anything that supports NDI. So my vMix system here, what I could do is I can go Add and go to NDI, and it pulls in. Like for example, right now, this is my NDI box, but same concept here. If this computer was running the scan converter, it grabs that and it becomes an input source. So this image that you see right here, this is coming in over the network. It's not a source that's plugged directly into my video system. And so I could have this running to a monitor somewhere else. I could have it going to two different broadcasts at the same time. And you think about the power of this. Let's say you're on a high school or a college campus. You're all on the same network. You plug this camera into the network, and now you've got a remote person you can bring into your production. Isn't that cool? So I use this a lot around the house, even within the room here, because HDMI cables only go so far. So my options are I could wheel the camera or wheel the computer over someplace, or I can just use NDI. And if I have a camera on the other side of the room, I can plug it into one of my little NDI broadcast boxes and then pull in its image over the network right into the production system here. NDI generally is like 1 frame of latency. It's minimal. And then if you think about it, if you have someone with a camera and a mic on an NDI box, the mic is going to be synced to that camera. So when you bring them into your production, I mean, there's no latency. It's just super quick. So it's good mostly for being on your own network. But if you have a really good, reliable, super high-speed fiber optic connection, like I've got, you could presumably transmit NDI over longer distances. It's not compressed. It's for the most part, it's lossless compression. But the other HX protocol, which is what this camera is using, does compress. But if you're looking at this and you've got enough bandwidth, you could pump this same image quality out over the internet and send it to a remote system. In fact, there's a lot of productions using this that you may not even realize. That's how crazy this NDI stuff is. And so you get a lot of these tools for free on the NDI website here, NDI tools. And so for free, you get the monitor to watch your NDI devices, so we can monitor this on the PC while we're sending it somewhere else. You get the scan converter, which creates an image of your screen onto your NDI network. They give you the virtual input, which will allow you to take the webcam built into your laptop and turn that into a camera. I can show you that in a minute. There's a VLC plugin if you're using VLC. They've got some Creative Cloud stuff. They have test patterns, so you can send color bars over the network just to test stuff out. They have the HX driver, which allows for the compressed NDI to work. And then they have Screen Capture HX, which I don't think I've used this yet, but I'm guessing it's a compressed version of the scan converter. There's a Mac version. Danny's asking about this in the Amazon chat. There is a Mac version, NDI tools for Mac. And this consists of the video monitor, scan converter, virtual input. You get most of what you get on the Windows side. I don't think there is a Linux. There's got to be something for Linux out there, but I don't know about that. I think it's just Mac and Windows at the moment. But if I am wrong, I am sure somebody can correct me on that one. And bear with me a second here, folks. I closed out all my stuff. So I want to pull up your chats and questions here so we can get some of these in. So Malik is asking about my Surface Laptop Go here. Is it lighter than the MacBook Air? Yes, it is definitely lighter than the MacBook Air. It's about, I think it's just over 2 pounds. Check out my review. It's definitely lighter than the MacBook Air. But the MacBook Air is a lot faster because of that new chip. Matt Robinson's asking, does it have a privacy shutter? And it does not. But it does have a power cable. So when you unplug it, it don't work. So that's how I would address that. Oh, okay, I wasn't aware of this. So RD says in order to use the 4K 30, you got to use the HDMI out, which this does not have. So I'll check it out on the USB camera. That might have that. Mark Dell says, I wonder how this would compare to buying an iPhone SE2 and running NDI. That's another solution. Absolutely. You won't get the PTZ options that this has, but you can do that. I've got an app on the iPhone called NDI Camera HX, which does exactly what this camera is doing right now. It just pushes the image out to your video systems. Now, to be able to integrate this, so here's the other thing. So to integrate this with Zoom, now remember, there's a USB version of this that you can plug into your computer and it'll work like a USB webcam, no problem. But this one, because this is the NDI version, you will need to download those NDI tools, which I'm going to do here on this laptop. And then you have to use the virtual input software to make it see it for webcam purposes. So let's do that. Let's grab the NDI tools here. I got to just put my email address in here real quick and go through the motions. It's the one thing with these NDI tools is you got to constantly register for them. And I have registered with them a million times. I wish they had a faster download process. And let's do, what am I doing here? I am video production. And do the little thingy here. Submit this, and then I got to go check my email for the link. And then we can go and grab that driver and see how it works on here. So bear with me for 1 second here, folks. We're just going to grab that thing. And I got to log into my other email here and grab the link. Okay, whoops. I needed to install these drivers on here anyhow, so let's do that real quick. So here is the link to download the NDI tools. That is downloading. All right, so we've got that. It's almost done. And all right, so we've got that in there. And let me just close these out real quick. And let's go to my downloads folder here, and I'll just install the NDI tools. And I will pull this up here so you can see what we're doing. And they are an approved Windows developer, so you're not going to get that same thing that we had before. And I might have to do a reboot on this. That's interesting. It's not asking me to. It's going to do all of these things. We're going to do the screen capture, the studio monitor. I'm just going to have all these tools enabled. The one thing I'm not going to install is the Adobe stuff because I don't use Adobe. So we're going to turn that off. Test pattern generator webcam input. Yep. And yeah, that's all the stuff we need. Okay, so we're going to hit that. Next, install. So after this is done, this is how we would bring this in for Zoom, for example. So let's let this install real quick. Because there's no way to direct, so this has to be connected to your network. So that's how that works. So in order for you to get the image out, you've got to pull the NDI image in. But again, there's a USB version about that. So Mark Dell's got a question here about how NDI works. So he says, I'm curious about using NDI at work for my dumb video stuff, but I'm guessing getting NDI out of a network will be a pain. NDI doesn't send to an address. Yes, so it works over, it's a multicast kind of thing. MDNS is how it communicates. So what happens is that it's constantly announcing itself. And then the NDI software uses MDNS to see what's available on the network. So you'll see this in play here in a second. All right, view NDI, okay. Oh, it's giving me a web page here. Okay, so now we've got that stuff installed. I don't think I have to reboot. And now we've got all of the NDI tools here. Danny's asking, is the network port PoE? Yes, it is. I don't have, I have PoE obviously somewhere around here, but I don't have it set up right now. But yeah, you could just use the network port to connect it, and then that would give you power and network. All right, so let me show you what's in the package here for the NDI software. So let me zoom back over here. All right, so we have the access manager. I don't use this, but I think this is how you might route between networks. Here, I'll show you the studio monitor first. So now this is running independently of my other system. And what will happen here is if I pull up this menu here on the side, you can see what it finds. So I could, for example, bring in, this is connecting to my vMix system, right? So that's coming out of the production system I'm using right now. This will be weird, but this actually will show us the screen that we're currently looking at. And then I can bring the HuddleCam in on this one. So there you go. It actually looks nicer on this computer than it does on my. Here, I'll show you what I'm seeing here. Oops, I totally broke it. Hang on a second. There it goes. Okay. All right, now it's working again. It's a little weird. I wonder if it's now it's better. Okay. So there you go. Now you'll notice here that I have PTZ controls. And what I can do here is kind of control this. Here, I'll show it here. For some reason, my NDI is flaking out, probably because I am saturating something. But you see how you can do the PTZ controls here? And that's built into NDI. So I'm able to control the camera using the built-in NDI controls here, which is pretty neat. And then, let me just kill this because it's like totally not working right now. So then what I can do is I can pull up the, and actually you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull up the webcam input. And this is going to install some more drivers here. And this is how we would bring the camera over to Zoom, for example. And I don't think I've got Zoom on here, so we'll pull up like Google Meet real quick. So we'll just go to meet.google.com. Oops. And I'll just start an instant meeting. And we need to allow the camera. Now, right now, I've got my webcam up here. So what we need to do first is we've got to get the NDI webcam thing to work. So there's this webcam input. Oh, it's still installing drivers. Hang on a second. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me close this out. Did it finish? So I don't think it came into my, yeah, it's not there. So let's go and try that again. Webcam input. Hit OK. Yes. Unable to load kernel video, restart computer. This fails. Oh, I think it's probably because we've got the webcam already going. So let me, let's close out of that. And let's try this again. I may have to reboot this computer. I'm putting it through too much right now. Yeah. So let me do a quick reboot here and we'll come back to that. But yeah, so you have to have that NDI virtual webcam driver installed, and then it will pick this up and then translate over as a webcam to the computer. Danny says, does the iPhone app allow for the same controls? I'm assuming you're talking about the NDI iPhone app. With the screen broadcaster on the phone, it just sends whatever's on the iPhone screen out, so it doesn't give you that. There is an app, oh, what's it called? I got to find it here. There's an NDI monitor app that's available on the iPhone, but I don't think it supports the HX cameras, which is what this is, because the HX cameras are a compressed format. Use my fingerprint reader here. Just let me in. Let me in. There it goes. Okay. So now let's try to install that NDI webcam input again. And it was a load kernel driver, video, restart computer. Oh, so let me install that. I'm going to have to work on that for, for the future production that we're going to do. But I will bring the camera back in here for a second so you can see what it looks like. All right, there we go. And so you can see what it looks like here full screen in case you're just tuning in. And let me just go back into my Chrome browser here real quick. I think it looks pretty good. And I think this is zoomed out a little. So here's like the full zoomed out thing. So it gives you like a nice big wide angle. And then we can zoom back in. And again, this is all digital. So you can use the remote. If you have an app that supports NDI PTZ, you can use that. They have their own software, which we're going to have to figure out how to get to work. So you have that as an option. So there's a lot that that you can do with this, and it's not for everybody. I mean, it's a limited audience. But I think if you're a professional, this might be useful for that. So let me grab. Sorry, I'm just getting all my screen stuff back up here again. So Daniel Chun is wondering, is the remote helpful? Yeah, I think it is. I mean, what's nice about it is that you can adjust things without. And again, this is like my first, half hour, 45 minutes with it. So I'm going to do a little bit more with this tomorrow. But what's useful about it is that, here, I'll pull up my other screen here. What's useful about it is that you can use the remote to position the camera. So I already set up some presets here. So there's like one preset there. Let me get myself like framed up again. So I have, that's position 1, and then position 2 is that, and then position 3 is that. So I can go 1, 3, 1, right? So, if you were in charge of running the meeting, you can move that around. Dennis Black. So he knows that I talk about NDI a lot, never looked into it. Yeah, it adds a lot of convenience. That's what I like about NDI, because I am really, I'm into NDI. In fact, when I designed the room down here, when we did all the renovation for my basement, I put 4 Ethernet jacks on every wall, knowing that I would be using a lot of NDI, just because it adds convenience. And when the thing that I use the most with is like the door lock reviews or things. If I've got like a door upstairs, I can take out my little NDI HX box, put a camera on it, and I can sit down here and get an image from upstairs just brought right into my video system, and it's one less thing I got to edit later. So it's been really, it's really useful. So I'm pretty happy with the NDI protocol overall. Jeremy says, am I missing out on extra features if I get the model without NDI? I don't believe so. I think the NDI model just gives you NDI, and I have the USB one. I haven't hooked it up yet. My understanding is it does all the same stuff, except it's not on the network. So it costs less, and it doesn't have the NDI licensing that adds to that cost. But my understanding is the USB version works with the remote just the same. And I think you have to, you can use their software to control it as well. So that's that. And there's some discussion about Zoom being insecure and whatever, but you know what? People use Zoom. They use it. So, you may not like it, but when I've got to be on a meeting or a call and they're using Zoom, guess what? I'm running Zoom. It's, I can't say I'm not joining your meeting because I don't believe in Zoom. If it's a customer, forget it. Like, okay, we'll go to the next vendor. But yeah, and I will say this, because I've used all of these different things. So in the school system, like our Board of Ed meeting tonight, it's on Google Meet. I like Google Meet a lot because there's no software to install. It just uses the browser, so that works pretty well. But the public is not able to get in. So and we can't invite them in because they could put their own images up on screen and stuff. It gets really complicated. So it's an issue. Google Meet, they can dial in and we can kind of mute them and stuff. It just doesn't work very well. So Zoom, I would say, out of all the different platforms I use, for all the complaints people might have about it, I would say from a flexibility standpoint, it offers the most flexibility. And so, for example, if we were using Zoom in the school system, I could be streaming the video image out to YouTube so people could be watching it someplace else, at least being able to attend the meeting. Because typically for example, and I don't know how it works in other states, but I know in Connecticut, typically when you have a public meeting, it is a meeting held in public, which means that the public is allowed to attend, but there's only a certain portion of the meeting in which the public can participate. So we have two, in our meeting structure, we have two what we call audience of citizens, where if you have something to say to the board, there's two opportunities, one at the beginning of the meeting and one at the end of the meeting, where you can come in and say what's on your mind. We have public hearings, which allow for a presentation and then a back and forth with the public, which are a little different in structure. But throughout all of these things, there is not a meeting platform that I have found that works well for the public in general, because we either have Zoom, where you can kind of let people in and kind of police who gets to talk and whatever, and then you've got Google Meet, which doesn't let really anybody in. So there's nothing that's all that great right now. So it's frustrating as an elected official, because typically when we do our budget presentations, whoever's interested in hearing the budget presentation comes to the meeting. We can't have meetings right now, so it's difficult. Dennis Black here is a teacher. Let me pull this up. This will be a good comment here. When we first went to online instruction, we used Zoom, but it only lasted a couple of weeks before the district banned it. Now they switched to Google Meets. And I'll have to say, Google Meet is great if you have a fixed group of people that you trust. And so all of our classes use that. So we went, when we started the year, we went in hybrid, which means that we broke each class in half. And this is for the elementary school. And then we brought in, so my daughter was in school 2 days a week. Everybody was off on Wednesday, and then another group came in Thursday and Friday. So we were broadcasting the classroom to everybody that wasn't there. And so Google Meet works great for that, because you can't get in unless you have yourself logged into the domain. So there's built-in security there for sure. The challenge is that you can't get the public in for a public meeting if you run it over Google Meet. So what we do on the public meetings is we give out a phone number, and we do that because we'd rather, like if somebody's misbehaving on the phone, you can mute them. Like there's things you can do with the phone caller. My biggest fear, and everybody's biggest fear, is that somebody logs into the Google Meet and starts putting inappropriate images up, which of course has been happening quite a bit. So what we did is we just said, no, if you want to be a participant in the meeting, you're going to dial in. So one of the things that we did do as a workaround for one of the public hearings that we did was I piped the Google Meet out to, Amazon has this like streaming service that's built on the Twitch API, and you can set up a little web page and people can watch it there. So we did that, but it's really tough. Google Meet does allow for streaming to people within the domain, so you can do that one-to-many in a domain login situation, but again, you can't stream out to the public. They used to have something called Hangouts on Air, which I loved, and that was Google Meet, and there was a streaming component to it, so it would stream the Google Meet to YouTube, and people could watch on YouTube and participate that way. So that works better. TechNerd, yeah, so there's been a lot of use of Microsoft Teams, and that's one that I haven't played with that much because I don't have a Microsoft account, or at least a paid account, but they've been happy with that, so that's worked. But yeah, the one-to-many is tough. Zoom has a webinar feature, but it's very expensive, and there's caps on the number of participants, and so from a public meeting standpoint, you never know how many you're going to get, right? So when we did the public hearing for the COVID reopening for the school system, the Amazon one-way stream worked okay because there was no cap to the number of people it could take, although I was paying for it personally because it was just, I just wanted something that could work just to get it out there. I was like, you know what, I'll just pay for it. So I think it cost me like $20 for the night. They charge you based on the number of stream minutes, and we broadcast out only at 480p. But with Zoom, like you get like a certain number in the webinar package, and then after you hit that number, nobody else can come in. So it's hard to offer that because you don't know how many people are going to show up, you know? So there's just nothing, like I said, for public meetings, there's nothing good right now. So Jeremy just signed up, and he's thinking about quitting his job to be a part-time tech reviewer. Currently uses the Logitech 920. Yeah, the Logitech cameras are good. That's the one I use for all of my Google Meets right now upstairs. But yeah, if you want better quality, this for a webcam, this would be better. What I use, of course, and my equipment is not the best in the world, but I use 3 different JVC cameras that I'm bringing into my vMix system, and they're good enough for what I need. I'm not a, you know, I don't have all these fancy lights and everything, but you know, that's what I tend to use here. Let's see what else we got. I got a jet here in a minute, but yeah, and so people are talking about just the difficulty in making things public. And then there's the issue of, so, because Daniel brings up a good point here also, then there's the issue of if you pipe it over to Facebook, you could do that, but how do you monitor the chat actively enough? You know, there's, you know what I mean? Like there's so many components to it. So that's why we did this, we hosted the Amazon stream thing. This is an AWS thing. I forgot what they call it, but it's relatively new. But it's super simple because you just point RTMP at this Amazon address and then it gives you an embed that you can put on your own website. And that's why we did that. Because look, if somebody wants to rebroadcast to Facebook, they can do it. But from the standpoint of the school district, like, do you have an official place to broadcast from? So that's why we went with that, or at least that's what I had suggested we go with. And so we may have to do this for the budget hearings because you have to show stuff to people. People have to be able to see it and follow along. So in doing it to our own web page, our own website, you know, we were able to say this is the official stream. And that way we're not having to monitor YouTube and Facebook. And the trouble with Facebook is that if somebody, here was my biggest concern with Facebook. If somebody takes the stream, so let's say you share it to your official school page on Facebook, people can share that live stream out to their friends, and now you've got a whole segment of chat that you're missing. So people could be asking questions on their friends' share of the stream, and now you're missing it, right? So that was the other complexity. So what we did is, now I'm remembering what we did. We set up a web page with the embedded video, and then I embedded a YouTube form or a Google form below it. So people could fill out a question if they didn't want to call in with a question. It's kind of like Donahue. Are you there, caller? If they didn't want to call in with a question, then they could type the question into the form on the page, and then we would see that on a spreadsheet and then be able to answer it. And a lot of the questions we couldn't answer because they were specific about certain circumstances or things we didn't have an answer to. So we went through the questions from the spreadsheet that we could answer. So it worked out okay. But yeah, this has been, and what I'm surprised about is that none of these platforms have addressed the public meeting stuff easily. Because you look at all these public meetings that are happening in your own community, they're all on Zoom, they're all terrible. It's really, really crazy. All right, everybody. So yeah, I'm gonna have to play around a little bit more with this, but it's pretty cool. I mean, it's big for a webcam, but if you want a high quality webcam, it's good. I think I might take the USB camera upstairs and run the meeting, or go to the meeting I'm doing tonight with it, and see how that works versus the other one. But yeah, it's nice. And again, this one's network connection, and you've got that super wide angle here. I'll show it to you one more time here before I click off. Look at that. Whoa. So it's definitely got a nice fisheye to it, nice wide angle. But I could easily, so here, just to give you an example. So I'm putting this like within line of my other cameras. So let me pull up my other camera so you can get a feel for this. So you can see what my camera looks at zoomed in, and then look what I get on this one. And then of course we could zoom it in. So for a digital zoom, that's nice, because this is the natural, that's the optical, the native optical whatever it's getting. You can zoom it up a little bit here. I think it looks pretty good. You'll see a little bit of softness behind me there, but it's not bad. I like it. So Harry here has had a ISDN phone lines, a fax. Yeah, it's you could do it in the 90s for sure. We had I didn't have did I have ISDN? No, we did, and this was like 99, 2000. We had a T1 going into my office for voice. So we had, T1 was 24 channels. So we had 20 channels, 22 channels for voice, and we carved out, it was expensive, we carved out 2 of the 24 channels for data. So we had 128K. And then, and that was before we had DSL available. And then when the DSL became available, we switched to that. But yeah, you could, if ISDN, you would dial right in. I knew a guy that was a radio guy, radio broadcaster, and he had ISDN to the station to do his radio stuff. So yeah, there was a lot, you could get dedicated circuits that would be good for this kind of thing. Of course, now I have my 3 gigabits of fiber optic coming into the house here. So I've got my own thing. That's why my streams have been like rock solid stable lately, because I'm basically, I paid a fortune for this, but Comcast has hooked me up with a fiber optic connection from here that goes directly into their head end. It's like one big long Ethernet cable, and it's been really working well. So, yep, there you go. And actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Comcast will do a private circuit for people. So they will do that. Harry says that ISDN was very stable, and it was, absolutely. It was 128K. But it was super stable, and it was a dedicated connection to wherever you were going. And now, of course, most of it's routed through the internet. But again, I think Comcast will do private circuits for you. I remember them talking to me about that a while ago, back on my old job. So you can kind of get that today. If you want to bypass, you don't want to be on the public network, you could do that. All right, everybody. Dartwing says, you have 3 gigabits. Yes. So we had if you go to my YouTube channel, it's Lon.TV/GigPro, G-I-G Pro. You can see the whole story as it came about. But Comcast has a product called Gigabit Pro, and this is different than regular Comcast Gigabit. So the way this works is they basically connect you to their Metro Ethernet network, and you essentially get the same connection that they plug the coax nodes into. So what they did, it's kind of amazing how this whole thing got hooked up. What they did was and by the way, when you do gigabit service from Comcast, the typical residential one, it is 1 gig down but only 35 up. This is symmetrical fiber from Comcast, so you get 3 down and 3 up, but there's a catch to it, and I'll explain in a second. But they come out to the house. They ran fiber optic. I got all this on the videos. You can see them actually running the cable and everything. They ran cable from my house to the end of the street, and on the pole at the end of my driveway, this is so cool. They put in this thing called a CWDM, which is, I forgot what it stands for. Something multiplexer. And what the CWDM has in it is a prism. And it changes the wavelength of the fiber optic light coming in and out of the house. And so you can fit multiple 10 gigabit streams of data, multiple, on a single fiber strand by changing the color of the light. So I'm sharing, as it's firing back to the head end, I am on the same cable as some of their other residential services, but we're broadcasting at different wavelengths. And when it gets to the head end, they do whatever, and they can break it out, all those different wavelengths, into different signals. It's incredible. So what they give you is this juniper, heavy metal thing, and the fiber that comes into the house just gets plugged pretty much directly into this box. And then the signal that I'm generating here, so right now as I'm waving my hands around, the bits of data that I'm creating are fired about 6 miles downstream, right from this closet here. There's nothing in between. It goes right in to their head end in Killingworth, Connecticut, and then it goes out to the network from there. It's amazing. So, so what they do is they bring this Juniper thing in, and then they give you two connections. You get a symmetrical 2 gigabit connection that's on SFP+. So I have a Unify UDM Pro router, and I plug that in for my general use right now. So I have a 2 gig line and a 1 gig line. Unfortunately, they won't combine the two into a single 3. So the other connection on the Juniper, so the first connection is SFP+, and I've got a little fiber thing going into the router. And then the second connection is Ethernet, and you get a gig on the Ethernet. And they give you, I kid you not, you have to rent this Nighthawk router from them. So you have all this like heavy metal commercial machinery, and they bring in the Nighthawk gaming router for the 1 gigabit leg. So it's pretty cool how it all works. And it is super fast. And what actually for me, the speed was important. And I'll tell you what, my upload speeds before, because the highest upload speed I could get where I am was 12 megabits per second. And now it's 2,000. So when you're at the speed that I'm at, my video uploads, when I do my YouTube videos, typically would take about 45 minutes to an hour to upload. Now they take 45 seconds. So think about what that does for my workday, because typically I was in a rush to get the video shot, edited, and uploaded by 4 o'clock, because I like to get the videos to release around 6:45, 7 p.m., because you have to leave time for the YouTube processing and everything else. So it used to take 45 minutes to an hour. It takes 45 seconds now. So it bought me a whole hour and a half more time in the day to get stuff done. Isn't that amazing? But the most important thing is that the connection's reliable. So before, on the regular coax connection, it was running at 12 megabits upstream, but I was sharing that bandwidth on the cable with everybody else, like all the way down my street. I mean, there's probably half a dozen, 2 dozen houses or more sharing that connection. And I was like the last house on the run from the node. So any kind of interference that popped up along the way would just knock me off. And it wouldn't knock me off for a length of time. It was just like enough to drop people off the stream and drop things out of sync. So it was awful. So now it's just rock solid. And what's crazy is that the amount of bandwidth, I mean, I had to like redo the whole home network, because to take advantage of the 2 gigabits, I had to get new Ethernet cards, new switches, thankfully the price on all this stuff has come down a bit. I'm not complaining, it's a nice problem to have. And I did a whole video about all the different things that I got set up to make all this work. But what's crazy is that my connection to the greater internet now is as fast as the connection in the house. So like just to play around with things, like a friend of mine in town, he saw what I got and he got it. So he's got his own Gigabit Pro at his house now. He's around the corner. So we joke, we've got like this 2 gigabit connection between our houses. It's like, it's like when you were a kid, you always wanted that private phone line, So we were experimenting doing, we were playing Plex, we have 4K MKVs on our Plex servers, and I can just stream movies from his house. Like they were sitting on my NAS here. Like it's just boom, comes up. It's amazing. So it's really good. So this is a new restriction that I hadn't heard of. Jeremy says, for me, it was Comcast's limit on 12 devices on the residential package. I did not hear about that. That's bizarre. They limit the number of devices you can connect to the network? I'm guessing it's using their router, huh? I got to run here. I got to make a phone call. But a couple more questions here. Darkwing says, CWM is basically different colors of light on the same physical fiber. Exactly. And then, I saw a comment here. Yes, coarse wavelength division multiplexing is what CWDM stands for. It's magic to me. That's what that is. Model number of the camera. So this is the HuddleCam HD NDI. The model number is HCEPTZ-NDI. That's what that is. So check it out. It's a nice little camera, and I will be back with a review of this. I'm probably going to work on the review tomorrow. So there you go. All right. I got to run. I'm missing a whole bunch of comments here, and I apologize. But I will be back again soon, so just set your notifications. But I do have to make a phone call and get ready for my meeting in a little bit. But I appreciate everybody tuning in. All right. Stay healthy, everybody, because we're almost done with this pandemic. I think we're getting more and more people vaccinated every day. I'm feeling very confident and positive. So hopefully we will be on the other side of this. So let me just get up my little end of stream thing here. And yeah, that'll do it. All right, everybody. I need to look into what Jeremy's talking about, this device limitation. If that's another thing they're going to try to do to people, that's just crazy. Okay. All right, everybody. I will catch you all soon, and some talk about Mocha. Mocha's great, by the way. Mocha for a network extender, best way to go. A little crazy to get it set up sometimes, but it works pretty well. All right, I got to get out of here. I got to make a phone call. I will talk to you all soon. Again, stay healthy. We're almost done. We're going to get through this. Get that vaccine. You'll be good to go. All right. We'll talk to you all soon. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.